Hey everybody, and welcome to Dad's Farmalls. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be repacking our front wheel bearings. Before we get started, just a few notes about safety. I've got the tractor in first gear, I've got the rear wheels blocked, and then when I go to jack this up, I'm not jacking it up very high. I'm just going to jack it up about an inch or so to get my stand underneath there so that everything's safe before we get taking the wheel off. The other thing that we'll say is before we do that, we've got 5 bolts that need to come out, and we have a hubcap that screws off. So before we get it jacked up, I'm going to go ahead and just give these a little bit of a loosen. I don't want to loosen them too much. I just want it so that they're broke free, so that when we get it up, we're not fighting with it. And then we're going to do the same thing with the hubcap, so that when it's time to get it off, we know we can get it off. So with that being said, we're going to get it up and get our stand underneath it. And then one other thing just about safety is, if you'll notice when I'm doing this, I'm sitting in front of the tractor. I'm not sitting back on that side, just in case something did happen and she'd roll. You want to be safe. So anyway, we've got the 5 bolts that we need to take off. We're going to do that first, which I'm sure you've seen somebody take bolts off before, so we'll fast forward through all that. Come right off like that. Set that over here. Okay, now that we got our tire off, I've got a little Ziploc bag here. As this stuff comes off, I'm going to put it all in there. So the first thing is we just need to get this hubcap twisted off. Get this twisted off. And as you can see, it's full of grease. This is all going to have to be cleaned up. So we're going to take this and put it in our Ziploc bag. Take some paper towels here and see exactly what we're getting into. It is a bit of a messy job, so if you got some latex gloves, that kind of keeps you a little bit clean. It won't keep you all the way. So then what we have is we have a castle bolt and a cotter pin that we need to pull. My cotter pin appears to be a old nail, so that tells me somebody's been in here before. There, we got it out. All I can say is some people just use what they have on hand. I'm gonna need to get a new cotter pin for that, because I would rather have the pin than a nail. Now the castle bolt, if you just reach in there and twist it, it shouldn't be tight, or very tight, and it should come right off. So we've got our castle bolt removed. Put that in our bag. And then we've got a washer. Remove that and put it in our bag. All right, the next thing that we have is going to be our outer bearings. And, well, let's just do this. See if I can, if you can't slide them out yet, you can just kind of give this a little bit of a wiggle. And it'll come out with this. When you take it off, make sure you put your finger there. You don't want it to fall out. And then you can just take your finger and put it in there, slide it out. This whole piece here, we'll need to clean all that out, all the grease in there. These our outer bearings look good. So then what we have left is we have our spindle, we have our inner bearings, and then we have a leather washer and a felt washer. Now some people want to pull these off. We're not going to do that. We're going to do this the way it says in the manual, which the manual says just leave it on. That way we don't have to mess with either one of these. We're going to clean all this off. We're going to clean these other parts off, and then we're going to put her all back together. So our parts that we removed in this, we've got to clean. For these parts, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean them with some kerosene. I'm just going to take a McDonald's cup. I'm not going to pour a whole lot in here, just a little bit. Just enough to cover up the parts. I'm going to go ahead and put some paper towels down there too. So all I'm doing is I'm going to start with my bearings. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it in here, set it in there, and then just rotate it for a little while and let the kerosene wash it off. And then I'm going to do this with each and every one of these parts, and then once they're clean, I'll lay them down here on this paper towel so that they don't get dirty, and then we'll continue with cleaning that. We got our parts cleaned off that we took off. We need to clean this, and I'm just going to put my cup underneath here. We're going to pour a little kerosene on it. And we're just going to take a brush. Try to clean that grease out of there. It doesn't actually look like there's a whole lot of grease left in them. So if it wasn't for the nail, I would have thought that nobody's messed with this since 1965. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hand pack this bearing and our other bearing. It's not very difficult. The one that's on the spindle yet, it's a little bit more awkward just because you're going from the front to the back instead of the back to the front. But getting a little bit on my palm and just curling it in until you see it pop out the back side, and then rotate it, pushing that old grease out, getting the new grease in. And all I'm doing is pressing and then kind of rolling my hand a little bit to get it to go up underneath that lip so it gets inside the bearings. We're not just trying to put it on top of the bearings, we're trying to get it in between. Now that we got the back bearing repacked, we can go ahead and put this back on. Alright, now we need to repack our other bearing. And basically all we do is we put a big glob of grease in our hand, and then we're just going to take this and then slide it in, and then just slide it right down against your glove, and you'll see it start coming up right here. You can see where it's coming through. Just keep moving her around until she's all full. There's little contraptions you can buy if you don't want to do it by hand, but this is To be honest, this is just as easy probably. It's just a little more messy. So that's all packed. We're going to put this back in. Just like so. So the next thing we got to put on is our washer. So we're going to put that on. And then we have our castle nut that goes on. The prong side, of course, goes out. And that's going to, these are going to line up. There's a hole that runs through side to side. Alright, now the castle nut, like when we took it off, it was loose. It's not on there tight. You basically want to get it back to where you feel it tightening up a little bit. And you want to be able to spin this. And then once you can just tighten it enough that it's not overly loose. You don't want this catching. And then once you get it where it needs to be, you're going to back it off. You're going to back it off just a little bit so that you can get your cotter pin in. You never over tighten. You always just have it a little bit loose. And for my cotter pin, I have to go get a new one because I'm not going to put a nail back in it. So I will be back. We'll put a cotter pin in it, put our hubcap back on, screw the hubcap back on, put our tire back on, and we will be done. One other thing that I'm going to say about when you put your wheels on. When you screw your wheels in, you're not done. Next time you drive it, check your wheels again. Check these bolts again because they will work themselves loose after you've taken them off. So, you know, and do it more than once. Just better to be safe than sorry. So anytime you take a wheel off, take the screws off of a wheel and take it off and then put it back on, you need to check it several times after you've used it, you know, a day, a couple days, check it next week, and just keep checking it and making sure they're staying tight. Better safe than sorry. Remember to tighten those up. So I'm assuming from here you guys know how to put a cotter pin in and put the hubcap back on and put the tire back on. So I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like this sort of stuff and this sort of stuff's helping you out and you've got your own little Farmall, you know, congratulations to you, and do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, leave a thumbs up, thumbs down if you hated it, whatever you want. But I appreciate you for watching. Thank you.